Hey everybody, this is the West Atlanta Bourbon Society, and we're back again. Tonight we're doing something really cool. We got a microphone so we can hear everybody now. Thanks for your replies, everybody. Thank you, Peter. But we're doing something really cool. We're in a different spot than we usually are. We're in my little man cave part of my basement. We're a little smoking room where we have a ventilation and we smoke our cigars and smoke our pipes and our pipe tobacco and all the stuff that we partake in. And today we just want to talk a little bit about pairing cigars with different spirits, cigars with bourbon, and where the cigars and spirits first originated from, all that. And then we'll get into what each of us are smoking today and what you think, or what each of us thinks would be a good pair. Now tonight, I'm part of it. My name's Kevin, and this is
Zakia.
And
I'm Keith.
All right, so these are all part of our members from the West Atlanta Bourbon Society, WABS. And tonight, I don't know if you've known this, but Zakia, who's been on a lot of our posts, is actually our resident cigar enthusiast. Her and John, who is our resident cigar aficionado, both of them are very, very versed in cigars, whereas I may be versed more in bourbon. They are the patrons of the cigars. We all partake in cigars, but not all of us know a lot about it. So we're going to hear a lot tonight from Zakia. She's going to tell us a lot about cigars, how cigars are made and what they're comprised of. And then we're going to talk about what goes good with certain types of whiskies, how we got into Scotch, and more importantly, bourbon, which cigars go really well with bourbon while we smoke. So this might be a longer post than you're used to, but this is kind of a post where you can sit back and spend a little bit of time before New Year's and get a chance to just learn about cigars and bourbon. So without further ado, I'm going to give the mic over here to Zakia.
Well, typically, if you're new to cigars and you go into any tobacco shop, they're going to ask you a couple of questions. And usually, most cigars come from either 4 countries. For the most part, it's Cuba, Dominican Republic, Honduras, and I'm missing one. Nicaragua. Yeah. So from those countries, typically you have either what's called puros or blends. So most, all Cuban cigars are puros, meaning that the wrapper, the binder, and the filler is all from different regions of Cuba. And then some manufacturers, some companies, they'll do blends. So inside the filler, you would have, like a mix of Dominican and Nicaraguan. Sometimes you have fillers from Costa Rica, some from India, some have Cameroon wrappers. So the possibilities are endless. But when it comes to a cigar, there's different types of strengths, there's different sizes, the possibilities are endless when it comes to that. So typically people might ask you, well, what do you enjoy to eat? Do you like spicy foods? Do you, and then what do you drink? Are you a beer person, or are you a bourbon person, or are you a Scotch person, or do you not drink at all, or do you just do wine? So when someone leads you to a cigar and a pairing per se, you want to either do something that complements it according to the notes, or maybe a contrast. It all depends, on every person's palate, because it's so subjective. So I'll smoke this one, which is a Gurkha Vintage 2001, and tonight I'm having it with I believe it's the Rock Hill Farms. Yeah.
That's the Rock Hill Farms single barrel.
Okay. Yeah. So this cigar itself is a let me look it up right quick. It has an oily Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, and then it has, let's see, Dominican has Dominican filler. So from that, the what I get from it is basically notes of like coffee and dark chocolate and like a creaminess to it. So for that, I decided to go with Rock Hill Farms because I wanted something sweet to to go with that in a sense. So it's all about your preferences and what you like, because if it's based on what you like, then you're going to enjoy it for the most part. Um, so someone else might take the cigar and say, to do a contrast, they might want something spicy and might go with, say, a rye or something like that, you know. So it really all depends on your preference and the actual strength of the cigar as well. So medium to full body, or some full body cigars, the ones that have the dark Oscuro wrappers or the Maduro wrappers, they typically you might want to get something that's a little bit stronger as far as a bourbon, or you might want to get something really sweet to counteract, to play off, both ends. So it really depends, you know. But it all goes about how you feel about what you're tasting, what you're getting out of a cigar, and then what you're getting out of the drink itself. So.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this mostly came from, Pappy Van Winkle. Drew Estate came out with a Pappy Van Winkle cigar, which is, kind of sparked the idea of, oh, well, we're doing cigar pairings with bourbon now, and it's a bourbon barrel-aged cigar. I believe it's made by Drew Estate. It's got Nicaraguan filler with a San Andreas wrapper, and at the end, a Kentucky broadleaf wrapper that has been aged in Pappy Van Winkle or Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year. Not Pappy Van Winkle, but Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year barrels. It's been sweated and aged, fermented a little bit in the barrel, where they pack them all into the old barrel, let it sweat out and ferment a little bit and age in there, and then they send it to Drew Estate in Esteli, Nicaragua, and they actually construct the cigars. So it's made in the same plant that like Liga Privada, Undercrown, and some of Drew Estate's highest brands are made. But it's got that notes of bourbon, the sweetness on the cap, and all that. So when I started pairing that with bourbon, I was like, we need to do a post with pairing, because there's a lot of people out there that don't just drink bourbon, and whiskey, but also smoke cigars and indulge in some of the tobacco products. So I was like, we need to go ahead and do a post, kind of encompassing that. Now, we will have a later post with our cigar aficionado, John Smith, who actually has his own brand of cigars, including the Patron Killer and some of that stuff. So we've got a, kind of, we'll have a post on that, and we'll sample some of his cigars and taste it with a bourbon and kind of pair it with bourbon and scotch. But tonight, we're just trying to see what we could do to help one of our viewers or help one of our Patreons figure out how to pair a cigar with a bourbon. Now, originally, cigars were paired with, and you can help me out with this if I'm incorrect, but they originally paired them with rums because they were made in, like you said, the four places: Dominican, Nicaragua, Cuba, and I don't know where the other two are. Honduras, places like that. So they would drink rum as they smoked the cigars, and they would actually drink rum as they made the cigars, rolled the cigars. So originally it was rum that they paired with cigars. Rum is a sweeter spirit. It was usually an aged rum or a dark rum. And depending on the cigar, it would pair with different cigars. Then they moved. Everybody kind of moved over in the '80s to Scotch, because Scotch was the to-do drink. That was the status symbol whiskey that everybody paired cigars with. And also, Scotch has a little bit of a smoky flavor to it sometimes. So that kind of paired well with cigars. Tonight we tried both, because we tried Bourbon 14 year, and we paired it with our cigars to see how that kind of tasted. And I'll let Zakia talk a little more about that. How did you feel about that? What do you think about the Bourbon 14?
It's pretty good. I'm not sure. I mean, I love Bourbon 14, so not sure if I would do a Gurkha with that. I probably do maybe one of the maybe like a My Father, or maybe something like a Liga Privada, because once you get into one of those single malts that's been aged for that long, then I would want something that's also that's a aged cigar.
Okay.
For that's been aged for a while, so maybe even like a Fuente or something like that. So
how long do they age the Gurkhas? Why would you not pair a Gurkha? Explain to our viewers why you would not pair that with that, or why you would choose certain stuff to pair with it. What would be the?
Well, it depends on the like I said, it really depends on the taste, and what for me, it's been doing it for so long. I would know what I would want with it. But typically, if I'm drinking that, then a Scotch, then I would probably go for maybe a more of a maybe a milder cigar. It depends, because this one, the Open 14, is I believe it's a Space Side.
I think it's West
Scotch. I think it's a Space Side, or even Highland. I'm not.
It's a West Highland single malt.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a Highland. Okay, West Highland. So typically those are like fruitier. You get notes of like butterscotch and things like that. They're sweet. So something like that, then I would want maybe like some type of mild cigar, but typically something on the upper end types of cigars. So not like a Gurkha. Now if I was to do a Gurkha, maybe like a Gurkha Ghost or something like that. I can't remember one of their other vintage ones, or maybe their Reserve, Gurkha Reserve, but probably not this one, because this one, it keeps going now. It's getting on my nerves. So, something
Us talking
like that
is not helping that.
Yeah. So I mean, even it's, I don't know. That's the knockoff when it comes to some of these Gurkhas. You really have to babysit. So, a cigar that you can sit down with a Scotch, because a Scotch typically, even with some bourbons, you just want to sit down with. And you want a cigar as well that you can just sit down with, and not have to worry about relighting it constantly. So that's why I say going with the more fermented cigars, the upper echelon cigars, especially with something like that. But when it comes to like a lower end bourbon or even Scotch, then I would say and time restraints and stuff like that. So it depends. I mean, I'll go with like a nub all day. Love nubs, especially the one that has the Cameroon wrapper.
Okay.
So then I would go with probably any type of bourbon. I think would go nice. Maybe even like Elijah Craig or something like that. So like I said, it all depends on what you like, and just take the time to figure those things out. And then, that'll make it a better experience for yourself. So, definitely.
Thank you so much, Zakia. Again, Zakia is our resident cigar enthusiast, so she's the one that tells us what to drink with what we smoke, because we're all novices, and I for sure don't know, nor do I have a humidor as beautiful as hers. She has a huge humidor with I think every cigar I've seen and known to man in it. So I have to give her props on her wonderful humidor. I saw it and I was in amazement when I went over there. So tonight you're gonna try with the Gurkha vintage. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar.
Gurkha vintage 2001.
Vintage 2001. Okay, and you're gonna pair that with the Rock Hill Farm single barrel. How does it taste? Did you?
Oh yeah, it's pretty good.
It's good. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Good.
All right. Does it complement well, or how do you feel about that?
I think it does. Okay. So, both of them are pretty smooth, per se. Since they're both, I get like different notes as far as, this one, I get the like the chocolate notes. So if I get something chocolate, then I want something sweet to go with it. It has really like a nutty flavor as well. It's pretty good when it's actually able to be smoked. So being paired with this is pretty nice because this one is nice and it's smooth and it's sweet as well. So they really complement, I would say, one another in that sense.
All right. And what I'm smoking today is the Liga Privada Undercrown. Speaking of which, he talked about Liga Privada. They make a Liga Privada Undercrown, which is a medium-bodied cigar, correct? Medium to full, maybe? Medium to full, okay. And it's got Nicaraguan filler, again from Drew Estate in Esteli, Nicaragua. But the wrapper is a San Andreas wrapper. So explain to me what a San Andreas wrapper is and what I should be getting from that, so I can kind of figure it out.
Well, San Andreas, I believe that's from Mexico, I believe. So, whatever the region, probably in a mountainous area, I imagine. So, if that's the case, maybe you might get something that's more spicy per se. Typically, with that size and ring gauge, you're probably going to get more out of the fillers, whatever's on the inside, more than the wrapper itself. So, typically, the longer they are, you're going to get more of the wrapper. The smaller the ring gauge, you'll get more of the wrapper. But the bigger the ring gauge, you're going to get more of the filler.
Yeah, I think this is like a 54
54
or 52 ring gauge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's definitely more filler. And the Nicaraguan filler, what should I be getting from that?
It depends. Whatever they may say the profile is, you might have to check it out. But then again, is what you're getting out of it. Mm-hmm. So when you're smoking it, what notes are you picking up? Are you picking up anything sweet, anything nutty, any grassy notes, any leather notes? Exactly what are you picking up when you smoke it? Because it might be something that I smoke and I might not get, but you'll get it.
Right, like the bourbons. Just like the
right.
bourbons when we do the reviews for the bourbons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just took a puff and I get like a little bit of chocolate, a little dried cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
I do get a little bit of the leather and a little bit of the like maybe toffee and just a hint of toffee and a little bit of like almost coffee note to it. Mm-hmm. A little bit. It is definitely medium to full bodied. I maybe this is just the way I'm smoking it, but I get a little pepper in my nose. Just a little bit of white or black pepper in my nose. Is that consistent with, or am I just smoking it wrong? Is that consistent with? Okay.
Mm-mm. Not at all. So if you're getting that and then you're drinking with it The
Old Forester Birthday Bourbon 2016, is it? 2016. So 2016 Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. It's 97 proof. And you can look up the notes of the Old Forester Birthday Bourbon, but it's usually real sweet, kind of full mouth to me. I asked Zakia what I should pick, and she kind of leaned me towards that. So here it is. I'll tell you what I think real quick. It seems like the cigar almost takes away a little bit of the sweetness of it. Brings out a little more of the spice notes and the fruit notes in it, which I don't taste when I don't drink it with or smoke it with or drink it with a cigar. We also have to disclaim that we did have meat, cheese, and crackers and olives before we delved into this to eat with our pairings, because we had been drinking a little bit while partaking the cigar. It smells real sweet, though. It still smells sweet. But it definitely brings out more of the peppery notes. It almost makes it turn into like a Four Roses limited edition almost. That's what I'm getting. I'm not getting the usual sweetness on the palate. I guess is that because of the cigar, maybe that it has compensated that a little bit?
I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah, because most of that, since you don't inhale the cigar, you're supposed to put all of the smoke and get all the flavor, in on your taste buds. So it'll either enhance some things or take some things out, bring some things, add some dimensions that you might not get if you were just to drink it neat without anything else.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's what you're experiencing.
Awesome. I think that's a pretty good experience. And now we'll move on to Keith over here. So Keith, one of our fellow bourbon members here from WABS, give us a little lowdown on what you're smoking.
All right, good evening, folks. So I'm smoking the Five Vega, which is a Nicaraguan and Dominican fused. What I got from it was a coffee and nutty flavor, and I mixed it with the Hot
Hofstadter's, yeah.
Hofstadter's rye here.
Family Reserve rye.
Family Reserve rye.
18 year, is it?
16 year.
16 year rye. Yeah.
Yep. And what I got from that definitely was a coffee and nutty flavor. Definitely a good choice, good combination of both, with both the Five Vega and that rye there. And that's pretty much it there on my end.
Explain to us about your Five Vegas. What is the cigar made of? The cigar.
So it is it's made from Cuban seed, with the Sumatra wrapper. So it's kind of like an oily based wrapper, and overall, between the coffee and nutty, I definitely got somewhat of a. It would be like kind of like a spicy combination between both. So I had to go with the rye. And that's definitely what I got from it.
Because rye is what typically spicy. So that would make sense.
Now, when we originally did the post about the Hofstadter's rye, it had a lot of blackberry and fruit notes in it. Did you get any of those fruit notes still out of it, or did the cigar maybe mute some of those fruit notes?
I think it did. It took some of it out. Because what I like to do is I like to sip the Scotch first, and then take on the smoke right after, just to get the flavors from the actual cigar itself. That's just me, So.
Yeah.
I was definitely tasting more of the flavors from the stick than I was the actual Scotch. But
You mean the rye? The rye
I mean
whiskey.
the rye whiskey. I'm sorry, but yeah, definitely a good combination with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the filler for that 5 Vegas?
Yeah, like I said, it's fused with the Nicaraguan and Dominican.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it actually changed. What's funny is it actually changed the flavor of the Hosstocklers to more of a. You said more of a chocolatey, creamy taste.
I got definitely coffee and nutty from it.
Coffee and nutty.
Yeah. So.
You mind if I taste a little bit of your Hosstocklers with mine to see if it changes?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're right. It completely took away the blackberries and the dark fruits, and it made it kind of chocolatey and a little bit coffee and toffee. And so I guess what we figured out tonight is when you're smoking a cigar and pairing a cigar with a bourbon, it can completely change the taste of the bourbon because you're adding a different note and a different cigar in. This is groundbreaking because I never figured that when I drank bourbons with cigars, I never drank higher end bourbons that I reviewed and saw how they changed the taste profile. So on mine, an Old Forester birthday bourbon, which is usually sweet, kind of corn forward, mellow, with a nice sweet flavor, has become a little more spicier and a little more like a Four Roses limited edition. The Hosstocklers, which is usually more, it's rye and spicy with a more of a dark fruit and blackberry flavor to it, like a blackberry cobbler flavor, has now actually turned more coffee and more chocolate and more toffee, which is completely different. And then Zakia, for your Rock Hill Farms, usually Rock Hill Farms, when we reviewed it, is kind of sweet. It's kind of full-bodied, oaky, maybe a little bit of toffee and sugar notes in there. What does it taste like with your cigar?
Basically, it tastes just about the same. So it's like if this is the coffee, if the cigar is the coffee, then the bourbon is basically the cream per se.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like they really come together. So I'm really like the bourbon is really sweet now, really sweet. So I mean anything that probably the cigar will do it's going to dominate. So if anything, what you're drinking is going to enhance the flavors that you're getting out of both. They're probably going to play off of one another in a good way. Yeah.
Wow. So yours is the only one that kind of got sweeter than all of ours. Ours kind of changed a different note.
Right, because it kind of opened it up on my cigar. So whenever I had that drink right there, it brought out the flavors of my stick. Yeah. So I didn't really get as much as what the flavor description is on here.
Right.
I more so got my flavor,
Of
my
the
taste
stick.
of the stick.
So the stick actually dominates the drink. Okay. Huh. So would
it's
it?
going to be the lead? Yeah, it's definitely going to be the lead. Just because of the, what you're bringing in. Because a lot of people just like when they chew, either one, you bring it in. A lot of people chew the smoke and then blow it out. Same thing with bourbon. Some people chew it to get the get all the flavors for the most part, and then as they go along, the first third, the second third, and then the final third of the cigar. Most cigars they do change over time, so you get different flavors throughout the cigar. So same thing with the whiskey. So the longer you sit with it, a lot of things will come out at the same time.
And I wonder if matters about the body. So let's say you do like a light body or something like that, and you try that, it may bring out the taste. If you do a light body cigar, it may bring out the taste in this. But since you're doing like a medium or a strong body cigar, which is obviously going to overtake it, it's going to overtake this flavor. Because it's stronger the cigar.
So we should probably do like a barrel strength or a higher proof bourbon with the medium to full body cigar to try to kind of compensate with the cigar, because what we have here is most of ours are, with the exception of yours,
Mine's medium.
The bourbon is like under 100 proof that we're drinking. So his is a little higher. The proof of his is 123.8. So his was a little different than ours. Whereas maybe we should have proofed up the bourbon if we're going with a medium to full bodied cigar. Is that what you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can, play. Like I said, taste is always subjective. So you definitely take some time and play with different, whiskeys and play with different cigars and see what you like, and then after a while you get like a catalog of, in your mind and like, okay, I know when I have this, I want to smoke that, so, and, it goes back and forth, but each one should, in a sense, enhance the other. But I think the cigar is probably the most dominant. That's probably the lead. And then, everything else follows that.
Awesome. So, talking about the Pappy Van Winkle cigar, I actually had one the other day. I did not pair it with... Well, actually, I did pair it with a bourbon, but I drank it with the Kentucky Owl 11-year rye, and it was great with that. I think that's maybe because the Kentucky Owl rye is a little higher proof, and the Pappy Van Winkle cigar is a little less proof. So it I guess it complemented a little better. But would you say that adding if we're smoking the Pappy Van Winkle cigar, which is a Nicaraguan filler, same thing as the Liga Privadas, it's wrapped with a San Andreas wrapper, the same thing as the Undercrown, but they add that Kentucky broadleaf on the end that has actually been fermented and sweated in a barrel of old Rip Van Winkle 10-year. Do you think it would go good with a Pappy 23, which is only at like 90-something proof, or would it be better to go down to like the 107 to the old Rip Van Winkle 10-year, something a little higher proof, maybe to still get the taste? I mean, would I wonder if that cigar, we're gonna have to try that, get one of those cigars and pair it with the Pappy 23 and see if it, that's what they tell us to pair it with, but would that actually take away from the taste of Pappy 23, with Pappy 23 being as expensive and as rich as it is? Would that be a good pairing with the Pappy Van Winkle cigar from Georgia State?
So which year did they use for the cigars?
They used the old Rip Van Winkle 10-year.
The 10-year. Okay. Well, just
the barrel was the 10-year barrel that they put in. That's what they say. They won't. Okay. There's been conflicting stories on, which barrels they use, but for the most part, what I found in my research is it's 10-year-old Rip Van Winkle that they sweated in and fermented. That's just the Kentucky broadleaf that's on the end of the wrapper. I have the nub here actually still sitting here, but it actually had different color than the San Andreas wrapper that was on the rest of the cigar.
Okay. Well, I would say start with the 10, and then either go up, and go up from there. I mean, as your budget allows, because their prices are off the charts. So as your budget allows, then I would say go for it and see. Experiment with it, and if you like it, go for it. So I don't think you can go wrong with that. So I know there's a lot of Pappy Van Winkle fans and all that. So I'm not that obsessed with that bourbon. So, but for the ones that really enjoy it, then I don't see why not go up, have the upper echelon, and see how they work. So, okay. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that will end our session for tonight. I know you all see me waving. I just wanted to have a chance to introduce another one of our members who's here. Her name is Leslie Gilmartin. She is also one of our WABS members that was not smoking tonight.
Taking a night off.
But she definitely will partake of some of the bourbons that we're drinking. But thank you so much. Thank you, Zakia, for everything you've done. We appreciate you kind of walking us through the cigars and the pairing. And we appreciate it, and I hope this has given y'all some value. I hope to y'all viewers and to y'all that watch this, I hope this helps kind of give you some kind of guidance on what to do if you do smoke cigars with your bourbon, how to pair it. And we'll do some more posts. We'll definitely have to try a Pappy Van Winkle cigar with some of the old Rip Van Winkle products and see if it matches up or not. We'll probably do that on another post, so look out for us. WABS, West Atlanta Bourbon Society. All right, everybody. Thank you. Peace, everybody. Good night. Happy New Year.